so Slate basically wrote a piece about you after this whole thing.
Right.
And it really was kind of straw manning what you did, but the attacks were also kind of personal. And
yeah, and there's always, isn't it interesting, you know, when Salon goes after me, or you, or Slate goes after me, or you, or Sam, whoever, Harris, whoever they go after, there's a kind of animus, there's a kind of personal attack that is not just an engagement of the, hey, look, you know, you did this is why it's not right.
Right.
You know, it's not, oh yeah, maybe it's funny, but
yeah, you're wrong about this, and here's why.
It's a deeply personal attack on someone. So I called them on the phone. I think I emailed them at least once, twice, a few times, and I said, look, you guys wrote this about me. I would like an opportunity to respond to this. Mm-hmm. Nothing. Then I went on Twitter and I said, hey, can I please have an opportunity to respond? You know, I won't Slate, I don't know what the exact wording was, but can I'd like an opportunity. Nothing. I would like an opportunity. I don't know, maybe that's a new thing in journalism. Like you just write hit pieces on someone and then you don't give an opportunity to say, hey.
I think it is. I think what's starting to happen is that because mainstream journalism is crumbling, and I still use that adjective there, and nobody cares about CNN anymore, right. And even the New York Times, I think, has gone in a really terrible direction because they love a lot of the ideas that you're talking about. But since the institutions are crumbling, well, now everybody just picks their website that they go to. That's right. Those websites are funded by all sorts of different things, and if you've got an editor who has bought into your postmodern bullshit in this case, well, you know you could say whatever the hell you want about Pete or Dave or whoever else, and you're going to get backing. So for this whole craziness that happened with me and Mother Jones last week,
and truth has been removed from that, right? Right. Truth has been removed from that.
And for this editor, so the title of the thing was about the new extremists further to the right.
And we have to talk about that.
So you'd have to be out of your mind or just a liar of the highest order to think that of me. You can criticize me for all you want. I address criticism on here if people think I don't ask the right questions or I had the wrong guests. And
it's not just that he's a terrible journalist. He has a religious mindset. Like, this is a religion to these people.
So that's the interesting thing. So then I went on the full-on. I mean, I was like, you know what? You picked the wrong person to fuck with today. Right. And I went on the absolute attack. I was defended publicly by you and Rogan and a whole slew of other people, to the tens of thousands of retweets and things of that. And then, I guess 2 days ago, he was writing about how, no, he doesn't believe I'm an extremist. But he doesn't, there's no public correction. They do slight things at the end of the article that no one's going to ever see. Wikipedia is going to still run with the real thing.
Exactly.
But he knows, I tagged the editor, this woman, Clara Jeffrey, in all of the tweets. She never responds. She's never gotten this much Twitter traction. But they don't feel a need to, because they know that their monster is just going to keep moving forward. And that's what I'm trying to figure out the antidote to.
So just to be clear, so what did he say about your show? What did he say?
The title, and you can look at it, maybe it's still his pinned tweet right now, though I suspect he's either deleted it or removed it altogether, was something about the rise of the new extremism, or the new extremists that are further to the right than Breitbart. Then he includes me in that, where he refers to me as far right. He then eventually changed that to just right. Right. Which the right-left thing doesn't even make any sense anymore. I can put all that aside. As I mentioned, that the top Forbes called this a conservative show last week. I've said to you, I think you were the first one I ever said it to, that defending my liberal principles is becoming a conservative position. So all of these labels are starting to make no sense. And that's just partly what's happened here.
And that's the other thing. So a couple of things here. If you had an itemized checklist, if you could just write your beliefs down and you could check, you and I would both overwhelmingly fall into the liberal camp, not the left camp.
Right. So, and that's why I've been saying liberal is not left.
That is... and that's a mistake people make. But just to be clear for you, so without naming the person who wrote the article.
The guy who wrote the article about me?
Yeah.
Josh Harkinson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is Josh invited on your show?
Yeah, I invited him immediately. I said, I'll let you
No, is he still invited on your show? And he wrote something, like, well,
first I said, come on my show, I'll give you the first 10 minutes without talking. He didn't respond to that. Then today, finally, days later, I responded again, saying, the day we're taping this is off of when we're airing it. But today I wrote, will you come on the show, you hack? So then I was being a little more heavy-handed. And then you wrote, well, I won't come on because you called me a name. Right.
I mean, he probably wouldn't come on. So the hack thing was just an excuse. Yeah. But you, just to be completely clear,
I was going to sit here for 10 minutes.
You said you come on, you can sit here in 10 minutes. I will sit here and I will listen to anything you have to say.
And I invited the editor too, by the way. She's welcome to come on and all that. But in an odd way, maybe that, and someone pointed this out to me on Twitter, one of the strange, odd, sane voices, said, Dave, that would be the worst thing you could do, because what you're doing is you're encouraging people.
More people to do things
You're
like
encouraging
this.
people to say crazy things about you. You then get in a huff puff and you got to defend yourself. And now what's the next thing? Now you got to sit and take it on your own show, which is so completely against the ideas that you care about. Like, I don't want my life to be that. You know what I mean? And that's...
I don't want my life to be that either.
Yeah. So it's an odd position.
It is.
And yet you don't want to just ignore it. It's against human nature to be attacked and to just sit there and take
That's why we talked before about you have to figure out whose voices matter.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know anything about this guy. But does his voice matter to you? I mean, is this guy's opinion?
No, he's utterly irrelevant to me, but he wrote a piece in a publication that has some... So the publication has some relevance. And by the way, this guy, as I mentioned at the top also, he was one of 40 people that the Virginia GOP baseball game shooter followed. Yeah. So we know that guy was riled up by a lot of the political stuff he was reading, because you could just look at his Facebook and all that to see that, and how much he hated Republicans, whatever. So if you're calling me an extremist, there's a cost now that ideas and intentions matter, which is why I think you can attack the hell out of ideas, and you should. Yeah. But doesn't mean you should be instigating violence, and therein lies the rub.
How do you feel now about all this? Now that it's been a day behind you, do you feel angry?
Well, when it happened on Friday, I was livid. I was in New York City and I was walking in the middle of Times Square. So I'm in Times Square, the craziest place on earth, like, stimulation bananas and I'm whatever, and I'm just flicking off Twitter and I'm calling people and like I'm going to destroy them and everything else. And some people said to me, this is the very definition of libel because it's demonstrably untrue. He's attacking your income source because of the reference to Patreon, all these other things. I don't want to sue the guy. By the way, I've been on the record as saying I am for libel laws. I'm a free speech absolutist, but there are laws that we have related to libel. That's a secondary thing. But then on Monday, when it calmed down, when I got home from New York on Sunday night, you know this because you're in my house right now, I came home and my dog was staggering around. Emma, she's 13. I love this dog with every fiber of my being. She was a rescue from Hurricane Katrina. I've had her, for 11 years. And she was staggering and she was having trouble standing and she looked confused and her eyes were darting around. And then I spent the night, and we had to bring her. She stayed at the animal hospital overnight. We just got her back today. And she has some issues that we're hopefully going to work on, but it completely put everything in perspective.
Yeah, I was going to say
this animal is more important to me than this bullshit, without question. It doesn't mean I'm not going to get riled up about
that's really
this
interesting.
But my love of this animal far
supersedes that. What we talked about before about relationships. And I have two dogs, two kind of crazy dogs, but those relationships matter, and in that sense, they not superseded, not override, but it made you refocus on what mattered. Like, you could be doing all this stuff like that thing in Private Ryan, that scene where the guy's like saying, oh, we got to do this, and he gets a bullet in the head. Yeah. Like now you have a sick animal. Like your dog is sick and you love your dog. And I don't know, I guess it's interesting. I don't know whether or not having him on would be a mistake or not, because it would encourage other people to do the same thing.
Yeah, well, I know it would, because it's a feeding frenzy. We know how these guys operate. We've seen this before with many friends and colleagues.
Yeah, what do you think his motivation was? I mean, I know you can't second guess the guys.
What is the motivation? Because I believe that it's exactly what you're talking about. That it's this religious... what was the word you used? There was this religious, quasi-religious, or
morally motivated. Secular religion.
Secular religion, right? It's this secular religion that they so believe. So I veered off the path for these guys. It doesn't matter that I'm gay married. It doesn't matter that I'm pro-pot. It doesn't matter that I'm pro-choice. It doesn't matter that I'm for euthanasia. It doesn't matter
the checklist all the way down.
And one side is religious, and this is why I talk about the left more, because on the right, even though they know I'm all of those things, I still get invited places. Yeah. I get put on PragerU videos. I get invited to college kids that want to talk to me. They put aside all the different... I was at a libertarian Students for Liberty thing. I said I'm for single-payer healthcare. Libertarians don't like that. They booed me, but then laughed. We laughed about it. And I kind of mocked them for booing me. Guys, we're the tolerant ones. Come on, guys. And they got it. Yeah. I don't get any invites the other way. So that's why I think that phrase is so perfect, because this is the new religion.
It is the new religion. Why do you think you don't get MSNBC doesn't have you on?
I don't know. I can't beg them. I was on Fox last week. Greg Gutfeld, who I think is a great guy, who's going to come on in here.
Yeah.
Really doing good stuff. We disagree on some stuff. Okay, big damn whoop.
Yeah.
But I can't beg them. Why does Fox put on Ion and MSNBC doesn't?
You see, that's a wonderful question that we should demand answers to that.
Did you see last week that
the hearings?
Hulk, what's his name? The actor that plays Hulk. The actor that plays Hulk. Somebody help me here. Mark Ruffalo said the thing about, MSNBC's hiring these white conservatives. And it's so interesting because he's judging people's political opinions on their skin color, number one. Now, he's a white guy who plays a green guy, so there's some inherent, you must, as a philosophy professor, there's got to be some deep shit there. But even putting that aside, if they started hiring a bunch of black conservatives, he wouldn't be happy about that either, because he would accuse them of being Uncle Toms or something to the Republican Party.
It's like Clarence Thomas. You know, we need more Supreme Court justices. They're black. Would you rather have more Clarence Thomases on the Supreme Court, or would you rather have more white liberals on the Supreme Court?
So what do you think is the antidote to this? Because I've been trying to push the ideas of classical liberalism. As you know, I believe that the individual is the only antidote to this. If you relentlessly stand for the individual, you will always stand for our differences. You will always be tolerant of our differences, because you will realize that you're different than the next guy. You won't look at somebody and prejudge them based on color, or say, I have to treat them like they're some animal because they have this level of oppression. Where the
so you put your finger on the problem. So let's talk about the opposite of the problem. Intersectionality is the problem. We haven't talked about that, but that there is grievance jockeying. Gad said the oppression Olympics, etc. We need the opposite of intersectionality, and we need unionality. And there's a line of literature called superordinate identities. So let's unpack that real quick. Have you seen the Heineken commercial?
Yes, it's incredible. I love it.
It's amazing.
It's everything that I've tried to do here.
Okay, that's what we need.
Yeah.
We don't need...
Can you just lay it out real quick for
the Heineken commercial? You lay out the Heineken commercial.
Well, they just basically get people together who you'd think have nothing to do with each other, or should be enemies, political enemies or personal enemies, and they sit down over a drink and do it. And they have that conversation.
Yeah, well, then
they're not sex.
No, they do some task, right? They have some hard task, and then at the end they say, "Do you want to have a beer?"
Yeah.
And they say, "Yeah," and then they talk.
Yeah.
It's an example of unionality as opposed to intersectionality. We're not grieving. We're not trying to find out who has the most strikes against them, who's the most oppressed, and then they get the most. They get the rights to talk. The BLM. Can talk through the Pride March or what have you. Yeah. What we need to do is, or the shooting in Virginia right now, we need to appeal to larger identities, and we need to coalition build. And I see the left over and over again continuing to dig down in identity politics, continuing to use intersectionality to find the most marginalized and oppressed groups, and then to attempt to change either the nature of words, and the structure of the rule sets in our institutions to privilege these folks. John Rawls had this whole thing solved, but I think superordinate identities, finding identities and things that we have in common, and working to build coalitions. And I think if the left continues to do that, we'll either get another 4 years of Trump or that other lunatic Pence. We need to build identities.
It's so funny that you describe it that way, because you're talking about postmodernism, you're talking about cultural Marxism, all this stuff, and yet so people will go, well, Pete must be a right, he must be on the right, he must be some sort of evil conservative or whatever, and yet you're not.
No, the more I think...
And by the way, I don't want to use conservative, as I said at the top, I don't want to use it as a pejorative.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the thing. I don't feel at home. I no longer, and maybe it's because I'm oddly situated. That's another word they love. I'm oddly situated in the academy in Portland, which is very left of center anyway. Even though the overwhelming majority of my beliefs, I self-identify as a classical liberal, I no longer feel at home.
Yeah.
With anything to do with things that are even broadly the left. And you and other people have called for the new center. I think that might be what we need. I certainly don't feel at home in the right, and again, in terms of that checklist of beliefs they have. Mm-hmm. So I feel that it's interesting, because I kind of feel like when I lived in Albuquerque, I feel that I'm not wandering, I feel that I don't have a home. and I don't feel comfortable anywhere. But one of the consequences of not feeling comfortable is when you meet people who share those beliefs, you have a kind of ideological kinship. You have a kind of, wow, we're really on the outs here, right? We're really trying to figure this out. We're really trying to we're trying to live a good life. We're trying to be decent people. We're trying to make decisions on the basis of evidence. And yeah, we change our minds. But we're not at home on the right. We're not at home on the left. We're being excoriated on the left for calling out. Never make calling out somebody's bullshit a right-wing thing. The moment you've done that, you've become a farce, a caricature of yourself. It's a farce.
You know, it's so interesting. You've hit on so many things, because I love what we're doing here, because we're talking about these broad issues, but then also how they're directly related to us as people, and that's what I think really matters. And even, you know, just a week ago or so, I think it was in Philadelphia, they unveiled their new gay pride rainbow flag, but now it has a black and brown color bar, you know, 2 new color bars to represent people of color. And this is the height of absurdity. The rainbow flag represented all gay people. White gay people, Asian gay people, Muslim gay people, Jewish gay people, et cetera, et cetera. There was no racial connotation to it. And the gay community, at least from what I can tell, is pretty good on most race issues. You see more couples, I think, that are racially different or diverse or all that stuff. But now, because they had to bow to whatever that, I don't know if it was directly related to Black Lives Matter or whatever, but because they had to bow to them, they've literally ruined the rainbow. The rainbow is, we know what the rainbow is. Now they're telling us the rainbow is inherently part of the patriarchy or racist or any of that stuff. And it's like, I didn't, but here's the personal part.
Right.
So I thought all this, obviously. I don't think I'm blowing anyone's mind when I say this. They understand what I think. But I didn't even want to tweet about it, because I didn't even feel like getting involved on this one. It's like, I got to pick my battles. And if I was going to say, well, someone's going to say you're racist. You don't want a black bar and a brown bar on it. But my point would be, there was no racial connotation. You're now making it racist. And guess what? Somebody, years from now, is going to have some other thing that they want to put on there, and they're going to have to make sure they're more oppressed than you. And this is the endless snake eating itself. Something,
and
man.
Just within that, you know, I'm just thinking about Emma being sick. I think that's one of the things that people don't see when they attack you. I think that's one of the things that people don't, like, you're just a guy living your life, you've got a dog, you've got a husband, you're trying to make it through the day like everybody else. And I think people need to take a step back and realize that we're actually people. Like, Dave Rubin is a guy, and he's a good guy, and he likes Heineken, or, you know what I'm saying? And,
I'm a flawed guy.
We're flawed people, and if you have a problem with somebody, it's much better, and it's not necessarily the tone of the criticism. And I feel weird saying, well, don't attack Dave Rubin. Look,
but I don't think you're not saying don't attack me.
People can do whatever they want to do anyway. But I think that you would get more mileage and more attention if those criticisms were devoid of personal attacks. And you said, Rubin said this is why I think it's wrong, and you lay it out.
Well, that's what I said before. When people have attacked me and said, well, Dave, you didn't ask this question, or you asked the question the wrong way, or you know, my policy on interviewing is I like to give rope to let people hang themselves. Look, I just asked you a lot of really broad questions. If you didn't know what you were talking about, you would have hung yourself. In this instance, I don't think you did. But I've had guests that I think do. But those are criticisms I'm more than happy to address. And I hope that 5 years from now, I'm so much of a better interviewer that I look back on this and think this is shit. I want to be better. I want to be better. But if you're going to jumping off point is this guy's a right-wing extremist, well, then we're not going to really do this. But I think what we've done here for the hour is pretty good. We're going to wrap this thing, because we're going to dinner with some friends. Because we didn't make up this friendship thing.
No, it's legitimate. No, it wasn't an artifact of. Say again?
You want to get drunk or what?
Probably, probably. I'm only supposed, because my diet, I'm on a low-sugar diet, which is interesting. So I'm only supposed to drink Pinot Grigio now. So I've been drinking a ton of that. So I think that's our...
I like the red, but
I think that's our thing.
That. All right, it was a pleasure as always, and we have to do these more than once a year, because I think it's a good catch up, and it's a good. I have no problem you grading whether I've moved forward or regressed or whatever. I think it would be a fun thing to do.
Yeah, and who knows where our ideas are going to go? Who knows how our beliefs will change when we're confronted by new evidence? But here's what we do know. If either one of us thinks that we've gone off the rails or that we've made a mistake, we're going to call it out to the other one, and we're going to do so in the context of a friendship.
Well said. For more on Peter Boghossian or Boghossian, he doesn't mind which way you say it, follow him on the Twitter, although he may not check his mentions that much, at Peter Boghossian.